Good morning, everyone. I'm Brittany Miller, and I'm proud to be here to chair the Assembly Committee on Judiciary. Would also like to welcome everyone to the 82nd legislative session. And with that, Mr. Schmitz, please call the roll.
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. Here. Assemblywoman Cohen. Here. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblywoman Gallant. Here. Assemblyman Gray. Here. Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy. Here. Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch. Here. Assemblywoman Marzola.
Here.
Assemblywoman Mosca.
Here.
Assemblywoman Newby.
Here.
Assemblyman Orentlicker.
Here.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Assemblyman Urick.
Here.
Chair Miller.
Here. And please mark Assemblywoman Hanson present when she arrives. I know that she's on her way right now. So with that, I'd like to welcome everyone to the committee. Those that are here with us, glad to see this room full again here in Carson City, as well as those who may be joining us at some point at Grant Sawyer, and for everyone watching over YouTube or electronically right now. Today we have a few introductions, adoption of committee policies, and presentations from committee staff and Nevada's Department of Sentencing Policy. With that, I'd like to start with a few housekeeping items. Before we start, as usual, these housekeeping items will stay consistent. We will begin every day at 8 a.m. Today we started at 8:09, which is pretty good for the first day. But again, do expect that we will be starting at 8 o'clock sharp every morning. And I'm also saying that to committee members as well. We are scheduled for 8 a.m. Monday through Friday every day. Agenda items in any committee can be taken out of order than they are listed on the agenda. They could be combined for consideration or removed from the agenda, or a discussion of an item on an agenda item may be delayed. The chair or a member of the committee may request testifiers to submit documentation supporting their testimony. When testifying, please turn your microphones off, and when you need to speak, please turn them on to speak and off to listen. We have listeners and viewers in Las Vegas and online, and we are recording this meeting, so it is available to watch on the legislature's website later. If you have handouts for the committee, please provide 20 copies to the committee secretary prior to your testimony. In addition, exhibits and amendments must be submitted electronically as a PDF file to our committee manager no later than noon the business day before the meeting. Committee information is available on Nellis, which can also be accessed through the legislature's website. You can also watch our meetings through Nellis or on the legislature's YouTube channel. We ask that public comment be kept to 2 minutes per person. Speakers are urged to avoid repeating comments by previous speakers. So, of course, it's always appropriate to say ditto or I agree or I echo what another speaker said. Members of the public may provide testimony on a bill either in person in Carson City, in Las Vegas, or by telephone. Written public comment may be submitted before, during, or up to 24 hours after meeting adjournment. I expect courtesy and respect in our interactions, even if, and I plan on that being a big if, so I'll say when we disagree. And finally, please turn off your electric devices, especially cell phones. Please put them on silent mode. All of us with laptops, please make sure we also have our volume down on there. Also, a reminder to everyone viewing, all the members up here are using laptops and cell phones and different pieces of technology. Please don't take that as that we're ignoring you or ordering things on Amazon. What it actually is everyone's doing research and reading bills and communicating with each other. So please don't take that as if we're not paying attention to what's actually happening. With that, I'll move on to our first agenda item, which is committee member and staff introductions. So I'd like to take a few minutes and have the members of the committee just quickly introduce themselves. Each member, I would like you to, state your name, the district you represent, when you were first elected, and how long you have actually served on Judiciary. So with that, I will start with my vice chair, Vice Chair Marzola.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I'm Assemblywoman Elaine Marzola. I represent Assembly District 21. This is my second session and my second time serving in Judiciary.
Let's go down the row. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, I am Shannon Bilbray Axelrod. I represent District 34. I was first elected in the 79th session, which apparently was a long time ago, because we are, other than Assemblywoman Cohn, we are the seniors. I served 2 years on government affairs, and this is now my second time in Judiciary. So, is that it? Thank you.
Good morning, Assemblywoman Alexis Hansen, Assembly District 32. I was first elected in 2018, served my first session in 2019. I've served 3 regular sessions and 3 special sessions, and I've served all 3 of those regular sessions on Judiciary. So I'm honored to be back, and thank you and congratulations, Chairman, on this big job.
There, sorry. Obviously, this is my first time. Danielle Gallant, I represent Assembly District 23, and this will be my first time, as you guys can see, because I'm still trying to figure out the buttons, so thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. My name is Toby Urich. I'm the Assemblyman for District 19, the most amazing district in Nevada. I was elected for the first time in November 2021, so this is obviously my first time sitting on Judiciary, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. I am Assemblymember Selena LaRue Hatch, and there is a theme. They seem to have put us newbies in the front. And I represent District 25 in Reno. I was just first elected this last November as well, and this is my first time on Judiciary.
David Orentlicker, Assembly District 20 on the southeast side of Las Vegas. First elected in November 2020 here. Second session in Judiciary. And then I had 3 sessions in Judiciary in Indiana.
Good morning. I am Assemblywoman Sabra Newby. I represent District 10 in central Las Vegas. I was appointed on January 17th, and I've served on Judiciary for approximately 17 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Assemblywoman Erica Mosca, representing District 14 in East Las Vegas. I am a freshman, and this would be my first time on Judiciary.
Good morning, everyone. Ken Gray, Assembly District 39, which is Central Lyon County Corridor and all of Douglas County. She said first elected, so I'm going to throw it out there. I was first elected to office in 2016, spent 6 years on the Lyon County Board of County Commissioners, and then was elected last year to this body, and I'm about now 18 minutes into Judiciary. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Assemblywoman Melissa Hardy. I represent Assembly District 22 in Southern Nevada, which is in the Henderson area. I was first elected in 2018, and I served on Judiciary in the 2021 session, so this is my second time on Judiciary. I'm excited to be here. This is one of my favorite committees, and look forward to working with all of you and with our wonderful chair. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I'm Assemblywoman Venetia Considine. I represent Assembly District 18 on the east side of Las Vegas and a little bit of Henderson. This is my second session. I was elected for 2021. First session I was on Government Affairs, so this is my first session in Judiciary.
Good morning, Leslie Cohen, representing Assembly District 29, which is mostly in Henderson. I was appointed in 13, then elected since 17, have served maybe 17,000 minutes in Judiciary since it's been every session, and I'm very excited to be here, and congratulations, Chair.
And again, I am Brittany Miller. I represent Assembly District 5. This is my 4th session. I was first elected in 2016. I served my first 2 sessions on Judiciary. I left last session. I did have a sabbatical from Judiciary. I went to Ways and Means, and while on Ways and Means, I chaired a subcommittee that actually covered the Department of Corrections. So now I'm back to Judiciary. With that, do know something else about me. Those of you who have been in any committees or viewed any committees that I've chaired, do know that my goal is always to create an atmosphere of fairness and consistency, obviously respect, and a high level of professionalism. So I know that the members will participate and engage in that, and I hope that everyone else appreciates that as well. With that, I want to introduce our dynamic committee staff. Many of the people I'm going to introduce now, you may not always see them. Remember, this is a production that takes much more than just the committee members in front of you. LCB has amazing staff, and the support they offer us, everything from technology to research and all the things that you don't see, our amazing dynamic staff, we couldn't do it without them. So even if you don't see them, do know that they're there, and do know that often when we all are walking out of the door, even if it's midnight or 1 a.m., do know that our LCB staff are usually here for a few more hours after we are. So please make sure that you're always acknowledging and just let our staff know how much that they truly are appreciated. First, with that, we have our committee manager, who is not in, she is in here this morning. Okay. Hello. Devin Kajat. This is Devin's third session, her second as committee manager. She is originally from Reno and now resides in Las Vegas with her husband, Raphael. So she's migrated back to the north for 120 days along with us. When not working for the legislature, Devin works for the Department of Business and Industry, the Division of Mortgage Lending. In her spare time, Devin enjoys cooking, painting, and watching anything sports related. The committee assistant is Ashley Torres, and this is her first session. She is originally from Huntington Park, California, and moved to Carson City in August 2014 after the birth of her second child. She and her family enjoy all the outdoor activities Northern Nevada has to offer, like hiking, kayaking, and sightseeing. She is excited to work for this committee and will be assisting the Education and Health and Human Services Committee as well. Next, we have Karen Warner, a seasoned Judiciary Committee Secretary with 8 sessions. She graduated from UNR with a degree in psychology. She medically retired from the DMV in 2005 after 18 years of service with the state. And for the past 40 years, she's lived in Dayton with her husband, Mike, where they raised 4 children. She enjoys camping, hiking, and reading, and feels privileged to be working here again this session. And we're glad to have you again this session. Tracy Dory is returning for her 3rd session with Judiciary and is originally from Elko. She worked for the state for 30 years, 14 of them with the Office of the Attorney General and 16 with the Department of Corrections. In 2017, she retired and enjoys traveling, gardening, and raising chickens. We also have 3 first-time secretaries. Aaron Klatt is originally from Reno and still calls it home. He enjoys spending time outdoors and having fun with his fiancée and their 2 cats. Connor Schmitz studied business administration and psychology at Clemson University in South Carolina. He worked in commercial real estate and marketing in Washington, D.C., and Reno prior to joining the Assembly staff. Connor feels privileged to be supporting the important work of the Judiciary Committee this session. May I also add, this is your first first job in the public sector, so we're absolutely happy to have you. We also have Garrett Tamani. Garrett lives in Reno and has been a Nevada resident for 8 years. He has worked across the United States in political campaigns, as well as in AmeriCorps as a volunteer working on environmental restoration projects and building hiking trails. He's very excited to have the opportunity to work here. And lastly, we are fortunate to have Bonnie Hofecker back joining us. I know, I see all the heads go up. Everyone's looking for her. I'm sure she's watching us right now. Her office is next door, so we won't see her as often as we're used to, but we will see her. And she is a research policy analyst in the research division who will be assisting Ms. Thornton with the committee. Next, I will have our committee policy analyst and our legal counsel introduce themselves. Ms. Thornton?
Thank you, Chair. Diane Thornton, Chief Principal Policy Analyst with the Legislative Council Bureau. I've worked for the LCB for about 15 years, and this is my 5th session with Judiciary, and prior to that I worked for Commerce and Labor Committee. And I'm excited to work with Chair Miller and the committee members this session, so thank you, Chair.
Hi, Bradley Wilkinson, Chief Deputy Legislative Counsel, and this is my 6th session with Assembly Judiciary, and I did 8 sessions with Senate Judiciary before that. Glad to be here again.
Thank you, and we're ecstatic to have both of you back as well. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. First order of business is the adoption of the committee policies, which are posted on the legislature's website. Also, members, those were emailed to you previously as well so that you had time to review. These policies are pretty standard and pretty consistent among other committees that you may be on, but they also serve to complement the standing rules and joint standing rules that we've adopted yesterday in the full assembly. So with that, just a few items I would like to point out specifically. Again, I know you've had time to review. Again, we know that there's a term called legislative time, but considering that we're the first committee of the day, we will stick to actual time as closely to it as possible. So again, I think 8:09 is a great start for the first day, but please, members, know that we will be starting promptly at 8 a.m. every morning. And I also appreciate there's a little adjustment getting used to coming in and going through security and the different doors and stuff like that. So, but just please know we will be starting on time. Committee members, in order to be recognized, in order to ask a question, if you've noticed, there's been a chat set up. So please just put in the Teams chat if you are requesting if you would like to have a question. Also, you will need to be acknowledged in order to ask for follow-up questions as well. Also, something else, a lot of this, it does cover some of the requirements I've already discussed about if you're making presentations or not, but do know that pretty much anyone, this would include lobbyists, the press, anyone in the audience, are not to approach the dais for any reason at any time, and our members will remind you if you are. So please respect that as well. With that, members, do we have any questions? Okay, not seeing any questions. I will go ahead and take a motion to approve the policies. Do I have a motion? Okay, I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a second from, from Assemblyman Gray. Let's go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed say nay. Okay, motion carries. Now we are on to our first presentation, which is a presentation of the committee brief. Our policy analyst, Diane Thornton, will be presenting our committee policy brief.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Diane Thornton, Committee Policy Analyst with Legislative Council Bureau. On Nellis, you'll find as an exhibit the committee policy brief. And the policy brief is just a compilation that summarizes the topics that typically come before this committee and an overview from the previous session and any anticipated issues. The Assembly Committee on Judiciary has a jurisdiction over a really wide range of issues, including civil and criminal law, cannabis, corrections, gaming, guardianships, parole and probation, property rights, and estates and wills. During the 2021 session, the legislature introduced 958 new bills. That was 495 in the Assembly and 463 in the Senate. There was a total of 130 measures that were referred to this committee last session. And of those measures, 107 were reported out of the committee, and a total of 95 were sent to the governor's desk. In addition, last session, the Judiciary Committee met 88 times. For comparison, the session prior, in 2019, 153 bills were referred to this committee, and the committee met a total of 90 times with 3 meetings behind the bar. So if you're looking for any additional information on the topics that become before this committee, included in the brief is a list of relevant resources and publications. These include the final brief from the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Judiciary and the BDRs that were submitted on behalf of that interim committee. Also, on the research website, you can find a myriad of publications related to the topics within the jurisdiction of this committee. And lastly, in the brief is a review of the court structure in Nevada, an explanation of the categories and punishment for felonies, Category A through Category E felonies, an explanation of gross misdemeanors, an explanation of misdemeanors, and then explanation of a difference between the parole and probation and the difference between jail and prisons. Chair Miller, that concludes my presentation. I look forward to working with the committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions for Ms. Thornton? Okay, not seeing any questions, we can move on to our next presentation, which is an overview of Nevada's Department of Sentencing Policy. This presentation will be presented by Executive Director Victoria Gonzalez, who I had the pleasure of working with when she actually was working in the Education Committee. Was that last session or the session before? 2019. Okay, they seem to blur together. 2019. Good to see you again and have you back. And with that, we'll give you a moment to get yourself settled, but we're ready whenever you are. So please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we had the pleasure of serving with Tyrone, which was such an honor. So good morning, members of the committee. My name is Victoria Gonzalez, as the chair stated, and I am the Executive Director of the Department of Sentencing Policy. With me today, I have Georgia Powers, our Manager of Policy Analysis, and Erasmo Cosio, one of our management analysts. Thank you for having us this morning. We are excited to be here to help kick off the committee's activities for the session. There are 4 main sections to our presentation today. First, we will share a little bit of the information about who we are. Second, we will share some of the data advances our agency has made since we were established. Third, we will give you a preview of data from a report that we are working on. And finally, we will share projects we have in the works. A brief history of our young agency. We were established in 2019. We were created as an independent agency to collect criminal justice data to assist the Nevada Sentencing Commission in making data-driven recommendations regarding sentencing and corrections policies. The Nevada Sentencing Commission at that time was a legislative interim committee, and with the creation of our agency, the Sentencing Commission was moved from the legislative branch to our department, with the intent for the commission to be independent and to have the staff it needed to actually conduct its data-driven recommendations. As you can see, our staff, we are a staff of 5. We have our policy analyst, we have an administrative assistant 3, and a management analyst 2, and management analyst 1. Our staff has already slightly evolved since we were started in 2019, and we now have a strong foundation to begin to really fulfill our statutory mandate. The mission of our department is to promote an equitable and reliable criminal justice system by providing reliable criminal justice data, practical fiscal analysis, and comprehensive policy resources to lawmakers, stakeholders, and the public to ensure Nevada's sentencing and corrections policies and the Nevada criminal justice system as a whole are effective, data-driven, and resource-sensitive. When it comes to how we collect, analyze, and share criminal justice data, we govern ourselves by these core values. We dedicate ourselves to data that is practical, meaningful, sustainable, unbiased, and nonpartisan, collaborative, and Nevada-focused. As I mentioned, we support the Nevada Sentencing Commission and the Nevada Local Justice Reinvestment Coordinating Council in fulfilling their statutory duties. You can see here that the Sentencing Commission meets monthly. Statutorily, they are required to meet quarterly, but in order to ensure that we have ongoing conversations and can make our meetings effective and also be sensitive to the time and busyness of everyone's schedules, we meet monthly for a couple hours. for 2 to 3 hours. The Nevada Local Justice the Nevada Local Justice Reinvestment Coordinating Council was created out of AB 236, which was the Omnibus Criminal Justice Reform Bill from 2019. I won't go too much into that, but we can answer a lot of questions about that. We have summaries also of the bill and reforms, and can provide a lot of information about that depending on what this committee needs when it comes to that. As you can see here, the Sentencing Commission is statutorily required to evaluate the effectiveness and fiscal impact of various policies and practices regarding sentencing and make data-driven recommendations for sentencing and corrections policy. That is a very high-level summary of the duties. You can find the full scope of the duties in NRS 176-0134. Additionally, the Sentencing Commission has been tasked with measuring the outcomes from AB 236, which I'll talk about a little bit on a later slide. And again, the Coordinating Council is required to advise the Sentencing Commission on actions needed to implement AB 236 at the local level, and then administer grants to reduce recidivism as funded by costs avoided. The Coordinating Council duties can be found in NRS 176-014. Our statutory mandate is to collect criminal justice data from every criminal justice agency. Specifically, that is the duty of my position as director, and that's in 176-01327. Currently, we receive raw and aggregated data from the Nevada Department of Corrections. We have a strong partnership and collaboration with that department and have been able to work very consistently with them and collaboratively, as I said, in order to get a handle on the policies and help educate policymakers, lawmakers, and public in different corrections policies. We also receive raw and aggregated data from the Division of Parole and Probation, but we don't have the full capacity to process all of that yet, but it is within the works that we're trying to get that data for you. The data and capacity we do have has led to exciting advances in criminal justice data for our state. As you can see, at a high level, just here's a summary. We created the first interactive dashboard of prison population data, which I will share with this committee and walk you through. We provide monthly snapshots and analysis of the prison population in our data dispatches, which I'll also share with you. We created a guide to understanding sentence credits, and we make Nevada-focused data presentations to the Nevada Sentencing Commission and criminal justice stakeholders. All of this is on our website, as you can see, at sentencing.nv.gov, and it's in the section called the Hub, which I'll walk you through. On the next few slides, I'm going to share some of the details of these advances. As I mentioned, we created a dashboard of prison population data, something that this state has never had before. So if you go to our website, and you go to the Hub, this is where all the resources that are going to you will need will be located here. I'll just scroll down real quickly. The dashboards are here. You can see all of our data dispatches are here. We are going to put all the data presentations here, especially the ones that we mentioned today. That way you don't have to go through our meeting materials to try and find anything that I referenced today. You can see the sentence guides that we created are here, along with all of our reports that we have put together. These are statutorily required reports, not just our data presentations, and then other resources related to what we do. So we have two dashboards. One is updated monthly and one is updated annually. If you click on the monthly trends dashboard, there are three main sections. So what you can see here is just the end of the month-end offender count at NDOC. Again, this is updated monthly. So you can see from month to month where we're at. At the end of January, the population was, if we were looking at in-house population, we can toggle between in-house or total. I'll go to total. Up here you can toggle. You can see the population divided by the female and the male population. The next slide will have the total population we can look at, but this divides it up by male, female. You can also see on the right side, you can see what the year-end population was back to 1990. And then, of course, up here you could toggle if you only want to look at a certain time frame, and get focused on a certain area. Again, this is updated monthly, and you can toggle between in-house and total. On the next section of this is we have a comparison of the total population to the JFA prison population projections. And so you can see the comparison over time where the projections thought the prison population was going to be and where it has been in actuality. And so we can see on January 31st, the total population was 10,323 and the projected was 11,641. I will also point out, you can see that since, if we go back to just October 31st, 2021, that the population has stayed pretty even. It's been staying at around that 10,000, that mark. But because we have this data that we're updating on a regular basis, you'll be able to keep an eye on that with us. The other thing we want to point out is that what we've noticed is that prison population started to decline in 2017. So as we've seen different reforms come through, one of the things we've noticed is there was already a trend down in 2017. And so we're looking into what are some of the factors that we think might have contributed to that. And then, of course, since then, we know that AB 236 and COVID enhanced the ongoing decline in the prison population. On the third section of the monthly updates is a breakdown of admissions and releases. And this is where we can get a real understanding of what's happening right now. We'll present some more data about that later in our presentation, but the trend of admissions and releases is where we're going to see the prison population change. So you can see from month to month what's happening. And as we can see, as of January 31st, releases still outpaced admissions that month. And more, as we're going to talk about, more releases than admissions is what's going to keep the prison population low. But if we start seeing the admissions trending up, then that's where we're going to start paying attention to, is the prison population going up? We have more in-depth analysis about offense groups, felony categories, and we can break all of that down about who exactly is being admitted and who's being released. We just don't have that presented for you today, but we can absolutely provide that information. And then you can see you can break this down by male, female, and if you just want to look at admissions or look at releases. And you can, what you can notice too when you get to see these trends is when the prison population was higher, you can see that's when the admissions were higher. If you go to the yearly admissions and releases trends dashboard, this is again just updated annually. You can see admissions broken down by the status of how they were admitted. So we can see who were the new commitments, those coming back from supervision, and then we can also break it down by county. We are going to start working on doing this by doing the county usage of the prison population, a more in-depth analysis, which we're going to present to our coordinating council, and that's coming up soon to really understand what counties are the prison population and where counties are they coming from, what kind of offenses are we talking about, and what kind of sentences are we looking at. The next slide or the next page of the yearly update, again, it's by admissions per year, and we can break it down. You can see the comparison compared as opposed to a pie chart. And then, of course, we have releases. So then releases also get broken down similarly by the status of how they were released, and then what and then you can break it down by male, female, and look at the trends over time. The only other thing I want to point out while we're here on our website is that a lot of this information, so any reports that we do independently, analysis that we do, we send out to our listserv and we tweet. And so if you want to subscribe to our listserv, you go to our website and just scroll down. And then if you click on the Twitter icon here, you can subscribe. The other thing I want to point out that I did that I'm really proud of that our department did is if you go to our YouTube channel, we made a video of, well, you can see our past meetings, of course, but right here, we made a video of the structured living program at the Lovelock Correctional Facility. If you've not seen this program, it's really inspirational about what programs and what things can do for those that we have incarcerated. There are interviews here with participants in the program, the program leaders, and it's just really exciting to see. And I also am going to offer for Director Zorinda and let anybody who wants to go see this program in person, I really would recommend it. It just took our breath away the first time we saw it. So I would invite you to go see that. As I mentioned, we distribute our monthly data dispatches. This is just a sample. You can see the full data dispatches on our website. And again, if you subscribe to our listserv or you follow us on Twitter, we make sure to update you on when they've come out. We just started these in August, and we provide quick context and quick comparisons. At the January version, we looked at a little more at admissions and releases, so you could see what the trends look like. for the year. And just also to show you that we're keeping an eye on this as we're trying to keep track of what's happening with the prison population. As I mentioned, the Nevada Sentencing Commission is required to collect and analyze data to measure outcomes resulting from AB 236. These requirements are laid out in NRS 176.01343. And also, as you may know, AB 236 was based on policies called justice reinvestment, and those are the outcomes that they were trying to achieve with the reforms. So what we do is we collect and analyze data to assist the commission in fulfilling this duty. What we did is we were able to present our first preliminary findings to the Sentencing Commission on November 4th, 2022. This was our first attempt to truly measure outcomes resulting from AB 236. In order to measure these outcomes, what we did is we used the goals of the policies that led to AB 236. Specifically, the goal we focused on here was the goal to focus prison resources on serious and violent offenders. So as you can see, that's the question we put here when we did this full analysis. What we did for the scope here of serious and violent was we included sex and violence offense groups in measuring that serious and violent, and we included all Category A felonies. As you can see, our findings here, as I mentioned earlier, we found that the prison population has started declining in 2017. We found that the AB 236 reforms and COVID-19 enhanced this prison population decline. The majority of our findings were that, based on the scope of serious and violent here, was the majority of those housed in prison are convicted of Category A and B felonies. The highest occurring offense groups among Categories A and B are sex and violence. And property and drug offense group and totals have decreased. And property and drug offenses were those offenses in AB 236 that were targeted to, the penalties were changed in order to have an impact on the prison population. This is one slide of many that we presented related to this AB 236 data. Again, this is available on our website. I can send this out to the committee directly so you can look at the report. We are, the report that Mr. Cosio is going to give you a preview on, we'll give you a full analysis of this as well, because we only analyze the population up until the presentation, and the report that the analysis that we're working on now will have that full scope of 2017 to 2022 by year, and we'll be able to see the trends in what was happening with the prison population. But what you can see here is there was that decrease in the percentage of the total population in property and drug offense groups. And like I said, these were the groups that were targeted with their penalties being adjusted by AB 236. You can see there was an increase in sex and violence offense groups from between 2017 and 2022. The percent of offense groups will go up as the percentage in other groups goes down. And also, as the total population goes down, we see that concentration gets a little tighter too. So that would explain why that higher percentage, but also it shows that those groups that were focused on in AB 236 have been affected by not being represented as highly in the prison population. Next week, we will be back to present AB 32, which includes a proposed change to an AB 236 policy that based on our data, our qualitative and quantitative analysis wasn't working as intended. And so the bill that we'll present has a proposed recommendation on how to ensure that policy can actually live up to what was originally intended in AB 236. And again, that is going to be a data-driven recommendation. Another sample of our data analysis and advances in analysis is our analysis of the aging population. This analysis was conducted in response to a request from a Sentencing Commission member. The issue raised was in regards to know what the aging population looks like in prison, because there are certain costs to be considered when we're thinking about the aging population. With this population, people age faster in prison, which means costs to house them increase. Medical care, but also making facilities ADA compliant for wheelchairs. This data is very important to consider when it comes to allocating resources to DOC, which I know is not in the scope of this committee, but important for you to take back when it's coming to understand what's needed there. Those costs, housing these individuals is very expensive. We're going to do a more complete and historical analysis to publish in a report, and we'll notify you when we do. As you can see, the data we analyzed here was just a snapshot. We just took the total population in July 2022. We looked at incarcerated persons who were 50 years of age or older, and we looked at sentences where they had more than 120 months for their minimum. And then we focus on looking at what their felony category and offense group by the most serious offense. And as you can see, the majority of those individuals that fell into this analysis were in category A, and they were in the sex and violent offense groups. Another analysis we did was related to those convicted persons with 0 prior felonies. Sentencing Commission members and other stakeholders asked us, what does the criminal history look like of those individuals? As you can see, what we found is that 5.31% of the total population are new commitments and have no priors. And of those, the majority are category A and B felonies and in the violence and sex offense groups. What this shows is that even if there's no criminal history, the majority of them are serious and violent offenders. And then the majority of those with 0 prior felonies had some criminal history, including prior jail incarcerations, prior violent and nonviolent misdemeanor convictions, and prior probations, just so you know what we considered criminal history. We also can share information about, or I'm also going to share some information just to break down those numbers a little bit more that I don't have on the slide. So you can see when we pulled this data in on September 30th, there were 10,318 individuals incarcerated. 8,027 of them were new commitments. 3,791 had 0 felonies. And then that 548 here that you see broken down is of those new commitments with 0 prior felonies and 0 of the other criminal history aspects that I mentioned. Next, I'm going to turn the time over to Georgia Powers, our Manager of Policy Analysis, to share information about another project that we're working on.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. Georgia Powers, for the record. Our department is often asked questions regarding reentry and recidivism. These questions come from the legislature, the Nevada Sentencing Commission, various stakeholders, and others. Our data collection has increased tremendously in the last year, but even so, it is not always easy to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of community supervision and pinpoint the barriers to successful supervision outcomes that we are asked by statute to measure. There is a lack of data regarding return to prison, which makes it difficult to fulfill the imperative need to understand what is actually going on. The issues facing returning citizens needs to be truly understood before we can begin to address them. Our staff talked extensively about this and decided one way to begin to work toward a solution is to embark upon an independent study to gather information. With the approval and help of the NDOC, our department began this parole violator project in September. I have interviewed 86 parole violators to date. I am visiting Northern Nevada Correctional Center, where I am asking all parole violators in each week's group if they would like to be interviewed as part of our voluntary study on reentry, parole, and recidivism. Participation has been overwhelmingly positive. Because often the needs of justice-involved citizens are as varied as the myriad individuals trying to resume their lives in the community, this study and the data we are collecting is both quantitative and qualitative. We are learning a lot from the anecdotal experiences of the parole violators being interviewed. Here is a list of quotes from recent parole violators. These qualitative responses give as much information as the raw numbers, and this important information is directly from the people who are living it. These quotes were chosen for their raw honesty. There are many, many more within the collected data. The participants in this project know that there is not going to be instantaneous change. They also know that this project is not going to change their particular current situation. But they are willing to be involved and tell their stories because they have the hope and belief that people hearing their accounts, their lived experiences, will see that the current system is not providing enough success and prompt the beginning of change. On the left is a visual representation of many of the needs of offenders reentering society, including ongoing legal support, housing, medical, mentoring and counseling, economic support, transportation, and employment and vocational opportunities. One of the questions I asked during the interviews is, we talked about resources and support earlier, what helped the most, and what, if anything, would have made a bigger difference if it had been available? You see in the chart on the right that the most common answers were residence, so improved housing options, enhanced communication with PNP, and better access to programming and treatment. However, as I mentioned earlier, there is many needs as discrete participants. It is too soon to provide definitive findings, but we are including information from this study at each Nevada Sentencing Commission meeting. To capture a wider population and have a statewide picture of need and availability, we are expanding this project and will begin interviewing those awaiting parole violation hearings in the South at High Desert State Prison and Florence McClure Women's Correctional Center within the next month. I am very excited to continue this project and discover what trends appear as the sample size increases. Our hope is that this information gathered from those with lived experience can be used to guide further decision-making for what is offered in our communities. I'll send you back to Director.
And now I'll turn the time over to Erasmo Quisio, one of our management analysts, to give you a preview of our forthcoming prison population analysis.
Good morning, Assembly Judiciary. This is Erasmo Quisio for the record. I will be presenting a preview of a forthcoming report we are working on that analyzes the prison population from 2017 to 2022. This data is based on total population, admissions, and releases from NDOC. We will be providing a detailed analysis by offense group, felony category, and the female population. In this preview, we will have data regarding comparison of admissions and releases, admissions by offense group, admissions by imprisonment status totals and percentages, releases by offense group, female admission trends, and female admissions by new commitments by offense group. Now to present this data. Here we offer comparison of admissions and releases from 2017 to 2022. There has been an overall reduction in both admissions and releases across all 6 years, and releases outpace admissions throughout the years displayed. The result of this has contributed to the decline in the prison population. Releases still outpace admissions even at the end of 2022, even though releases and admissions were close. Something else to note on this data is the rise in admissions from 2021 to 2022. This will be interesting how it will play out for the future. On this slide, we can see how each offense group has changed from 2017 to 2022 in NDOC admissions. Below the chart is the same data represented in a data table for further analysis. We can see a dramatic decline in drug and property offenses. Even with the overall reduction, most offense groups saw an increase in this past year. Those offense groups that saw an increase this past year are DUIs, other, property, sex, and violence. On the left side, we broke down admissions by imprisonment status totals. On the right side, we have the corresponding percentages of those totals. The reason for presenting both views is that you require both to see the whole picture. If I presented just the numbers by themselves, then you would just have one side of the picture. If I presented just percentages by themselves, you would just have the other side of the picture. But by providing both percentages and totals, you now have the complete picture. One example, while total new commitments have declined, percentages remain about the same. Another example on here, we can see how parole violators with no new conviction, third grouping down, has increased in total numbers and percentages as well. On this slide, we can see how each offense group has changed from 2017 to 2022 in NDOC releases. Again, the table depiction is below the bar chart. Similar to admissions, the admissions chart we showed, some offense groups have also seen a decline in releases. Other offense groups that have decreased, those offense groups that have decreased are drug, DUI, other, property, and violence. Now let us take a look at total female admissions from 2017 to 2022. Overall, the female admissions has declined. However, again, we can see that there has been a rise from 2021 to 2022. It will also be interesting to see how this will play out for the future. Then we broke down female admissions by new commitments by offense group. We have the visual portion on top, and the data table is on the bottom for further analysis again. Overall, there has been an overall decline across all 6 years displayed. However, DUI, other, property, and violence offense groups have seen a rise from 2021 to 2022. We will continue to closely monitor and analyze these subtle and major changes in the prison population. As a reminder, this is only a sample of a forthcoming report. As soon as it is complete, we will provide that report. Thank you for your time, and I will turn the time back over to Director Gonzalez.
For the record, Victoria Gonzalez. Finally, we want to share what we have in the works. If you can't tell, we have a wealth of NDOC data to analyze, and we are just getting started. So as you can see, what we're working on is identifying the type of drug for drug offenses, identifying the type of burglary for burglary offenses. We are working on a full data analysis of the temporary revocations. And we are also currently working on data analysis to assist legislators in developing their BDRs and their bills. And so your request can go here, which is where we would invite you to contact us and submit your request. The analysis we shared with you today came from other requests. Your request helps others to learn more about our prison population and can lead to truly data-driven criminal justice policies. With that, I'll turn the time back over to the chair.
Thank you for that presentation, Director. We do have a few questions from members. So with that, I will begin with Assemblywoman Newby.
Good morning. Thank you so much for this presentation. I love data. I'm such a data nerd, and this is just amazing. On your hub, if you go to the yearly information and the NDOC releases by status, I noticed that one of the categories is deceased. I have a constituent who is particularly interested in this data, and particularly around prison suicides, and is frustrated because I believe NDOC used to provide that information on the manner of death of all of those who died in their care, and currently does not. Are you aware of that data, or how my constituent could access that?
Victoria Gonzalez for the record. I remember seeing those reports as well. I believe they were published. I have not looked at them recently. What I could say is we could work with DOC. The first thing I can offer is that we could offer an analysis of just those who have died over time, as you can see here, and we might be able to look into deeper and then coordinate with DOC about how to report that information. So we could do that. I think it would also do us a service to reach out to the department and find out what's going on with that data, and see if that's something that they should take on, and we could work on it together. So we could look into that as well, and we'll start looking into that, and we can talk more offline about how we could do that, and I can let you know what we've talked about with DOC.
Thank you.
Next question from Assemblyman Ohrenlichter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, and I'd like to go back to my questions about the slide with the parolee comments, the violators. And there's a striking amount of people talking about their drug problems. And so I was wondering if you also showed that the number of drug offenders has gone down. So are these people who were in the previous period when we were jailing a lot of drug offenders? Are they people who might have been jailed for sex or violence but have drug problems? And are these, so what's the nature of these people who have drug problems that have parole violations?
Georgia Powers for the record. Yes, that is something that I have noticed. An overwhelming, one of the questions I ask is, have you had substance use issues? And that's the way that I put it forward. And there are very few people who say no. But these are from everybody that I have interviewed. And so they have, their criminal past is across the board. It could be sex, violence, could be a drug or property crime. So it is overwhelmingly a problem with drugs.
Okay, could I follow up, please? So is there drug use a role in the committing all these different crimes? Is that what's driving their criminal behavior in part?
That's not something that I can speak to. It's not a question that I ask them whether it was actually involved in their crime or not.
Next question from Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. Okay, we'll go to Assemblywoman Mosca.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this information. I know you had mentioned that we can also look up other data. Are we able to see it by race and ethnicity as well as assembly district?
Victoria Gonzalez, for the record, we can absolutely do race and ethnicity, and so we'll add that. And then I'll look up district because it's going to be, you mean district of the incarcerated person, correct? Yeah, that's going to be difficult because of their address. We would have to use that, but we could brainstorm about something we could do and then touch base with you about some of our ideas about how to measure that. But we can absolutely do race and ethnicity.
I have a brief question as well, not seeing any more questions from members. The question is, if we could go back to when we were referring to the parole violations. So when it comes to that, is the data aggregated out for what those parole violations were? Back to when you were talking about the 86 people that you were interviewed, do we have information or that can volunteer to be interviewed? Do we have information about what those parole violations were?
Victoria Gonzalez, for the record. So I guess I want to make sure I understand your question about violation. So whether it was for a technical or for a new offense or anything else?
Exactly, yes.
Yes, so we are working on that. So the data, Victoria Gonzalez, for the record, the data that we're working on specifically for the temporary revocations is going to be, that's specific to technical violators. So anybody that's back for a temporev is what we refer to it as, is back for a technical violation. So we will have data very, very specific to just those technical violations. As far as like getting into, I don't know how specific you're looking, but let me know and I can let you know how specific we can get. And then we can break it down by who might have a pending charge, but we're looking into that. Outside of that, I just want to make sure if there's anything else you would want to know other than is there a pending charge or a technical?
I'm really interested in looking at the technicals because I remember from my previous data that was presented in this committee the last time I was in Judiciary, what the wide range of technical violations were. And so to make sure that we're also being supportive of people. And so I'm very interested in those technical violations.
For the record, Victoria Gonzalez, so are we. And that was one of the things they tried to address in AB 236. Those temporary revocations were supposed to be in response, or are in response to technical violations. And then the Division of Parole and Probation has a graduated sanctions in a matrix to help address those violations. So what we could do, and what we're planning to do with AB 32 when we're here next week, is we could explain more about how that how those sanctions work in the matrix, and provide you some detail about that, and then how they're being addressed. So we could talk more about the matrix, and then I will say my take on those numbers being up. When Mr. Cosio pointed out that those parole violators coming back with no new convictions, those numbers have increased. I do believe it's because of how these temporary revocations are working right now for those parolees, because they have to come back to DOC, which we will talk at length when we're back here for AB 32. So I echo that, and we will talk more. I'll show you more what we have when we have that next analysis, and then see what else you'd like to know, and we can dig deeper.
So the date for that next analysis is?
For the bill or for the
for the reporting, yes.
So we just got the data yesterday. So what I'll do is I'll take a look at it today. Victoria Gonzalez for the record. I'll look at the data today and talk to Mr. Cosio and see what we can come together with quickly, because we just talked to DOC and they were great with getting us the data. So I will look at that and then let you know. And that is definitely the top. I'll put it at the top of our list.
Okay, thank you for that. We will go back to a few more member questions. Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. So I was also drawn to the responses from your interviews with the people that were released, and I noticed a theme of there was no resources, it took too long to get resources, we couldn't get support. And so I have kind of a twofold question of what resources are being provided, and then why are they taking so long? Is it a staffing issue? Is it a lack of program issue? Is it where they're located? What is the problem there?
Victoria Gonzalez for the record. As far as literal resources, they are given $25 when they leave. And then outside of that, I don't know if that's what you mean, but I don't know if you also mean like referrals to programs and things like that. They are given very little. And I don't know where that would come from. I think DOC, that's what's been set up. I don't point the finger at anybody about where those resources are, because I think it's a combination of what's happening at the supervision level, what's happening upon release, and then what's happening in the community. And so one of the things we actually had a presentation about at a sentencing commission meeting previously was the homelessness that is related to people leaving prison, both on parole and both once they've been discharged. And so the resources are limited, and we're working on gathering more information about that and presenting it to the commission, which we can continue to let this committee know about as well. So does that answer your question about the literal resources that are provided? Okay.
Next, we have a question from Assemblyman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your counts, excuse me, in your counts, who do you actually count? Do you count everybody in the prisons as well as the camps? What about post-adjudication, people serving time in county jails?
For the record, Victoria Gonzalez, we do count anyone in a Department of Correction facility. The only individuals, and I'm going to actually touch base with Ms. Powers on this, and that we're counting in jails are going to be within a very certain scope, depending on what their relationship is to being housed by DOC. But we could also break the population, just to the first part of your question, we can break the population down by facility and show you who we're counting. But we're counting anybody in a camp for sure. And then if Ms. Powers would help me out with this too.
Georgia Powers for the record. The in-house population would be anybody who was in a facility, a camp, or a prison facility. And then the total population would include anybody who was in a jail but still serving an NDO sentence, or anybody in a hospital or an out-of-state facility.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Assemblywoman Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to see you all. A few questions and a couple of comments.
Assemblywoman will have one question, please.
Oh, yeah, one question. Okay, I'll be good. First, just a quick statement, just to give, my district covers Pershing County. So Lovelock Corrections Facility is in my district. I know that you're not DOC. This will come up later, but huge concerns, in fact, crisis level of staffing. I've been in touch with administration there, and literally almost their hair is on fire. 45% staff to the prison population. So just for the record and for my colleagues to know that we really do need to, and I see you nodding, so maybe you're in agreement that we need to really have some deep discussions about this crisis. And I'm sure it's not just Lovelock Prison. When I looked at slide 19 and we talk about property releases or property crimes going down, violent crimes going down, in particular, I'm just curious in the data, I didn't go to the hub yet, does it break it down anymore? Because when we talk about these numbers are going down, that would sound on its face like, oh, that's good news. Not as many people are going to prison, but it's because the threshold went up for the crimes. So you can, I think, you can steal $950 worth of products at a Target before you really have a lot of consequences or any. So that would invariably, I would think, lead us to seeing it lower. I'm wondering if that's broken down anywhere, that we could see the reason these numbers are going down in relationship to here's what the law changed. And the same on violent crime. We had maybe changed some felonies, categories, things like that. And back to our education days, it reminds me of what we're dealing with now, that I'm a broken record of, on education, is our graduation rates are up, but our proficiencies are down. So I'm just wondering if that's kind of a similar thing that we're seeing with some of these numbers.
For the record, Victoria Gonzalez. Yes, so with the drug and property offenses, like you said, the thresholds changed. So I think that's absolutely why that part of the population has changed. And so we could go back and look at those and do a comparison of the type of offense that happened from 2017, 18, 19, and then compare that to 20 when AB 236 went into effect, and we could do a comparison of that. So we will look at that and let you know what we're able to put together. And then to your point, the violence offense group and sex have gone up. And so that, to me, is consistent with what we're aware of with the crime rates, right, that we've seen. And so in those groups, those have been, that's what most of the majority of our prison is comprised of. And so that increase there makes sense for me for what's happening with the crime rate. So that comparison will also help when it comes to understand what's happening with drug and property.
And Chair, just a clarification on one thing she said.
Yes.
So on slide 19, when I'm looking at violence, that number's going down, but you said it was going up?
Victoria Gonzalez, for the record. For our clarification, yeah, what I meant was the increase that happened from 21 to 22. So it went down, but if you look at the totals, it went from 1370 in 2021, and it went up to 1502 in 2022, and that's something we're keeping an eye on. So yes, it did go down, but that recent increase has got us looking at what the trends are and wanting to understand what's going on there.
Thank you, Director. One more question, I think, for the sake of just everyone here in the committee, and also appreciating that not everyone in the committee, even though they're smiling at you like, yes, doesn't actually have a specific background in criminal justice. So, and some are nodding now. So could you give us the definition that we follow in Nevada for recidivism? Just a 2 or 3 sentence, yeah.
Victoria Gonzalez, for the record, we don't have a statewide definition. But I don't know if that's what
Bill, I feel like we discussed that a few sessions ago, that we were going to get one. So give us the blanket.
So first of all, what I'll say, this project that Ms. Powers gave you information about, which I wanted to mention, our goal with working with the Sentencing Commission is to get a recommendation for a definition back before this legislature in 2025, because we know it's been needed. So we're working on that. So each agency has a different definition for recidivism. So DOC, or Department of Corrections, has their own. Parole and Probation has their own. The courts have their own. The specialty courts have their own. So what I could do is I could put all of those together so you could compare those, which is why this is desperately needed. Go ahead, Chair.
And I'm looking at Director Sorenda too. Okay, so in a blanket statement, it is when someone...
Go ahead. I'll say generally.
Recommits a crime, right?
I'll say generally, and I'm going to check with Ms. Powers too. Generally, with the Department of Corrections, we're looking at within a 3-year period. I believe it's a conviction. Yeah. So within a 3-year period, there's a conviction, and we could actually put together some of the reports that DOC has done the last few years about recidivism. So in general, from that perspective, from DOC's perspective, it's within a 3-year period of new conviction. But as I said, every agency is going to have a little bit different version of that.
Okay, and so I'm going to ask a question for legal. Mr. Wilkinson, do we need some form of legislation in order, or is this just a policy that we can work on within the state to get one consistent term for recidivism, one consistent standard?
I don't think that you'd really need legislation that would have some kind of definition unless it were used in a statute for some purpose. That's really more of a policy thing.
Thank you. So then I will be calling on our agencies to one consistent term. Director, Gonzalez.
Victoria Gonzalez for the record. Other states have. And so I agree with council's assessment that it's not needed. I guess based on our assessment in the Sentencing Commission and discussions we have, I think it's worth looking into. And so if it's something that you do decide, we could put together a presentation that talks about the different kinds of definitions and have that discussion here as well. And we just had a presentation from Oregon, and I believe theirs was in statute, that they did that fairly recently. They codified a definition of recidivism.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And with that, we will go ahead and close this presentation and move on to public comment. So with public comment, please make sure that your comments are specific to those issues that fall within the jurisdiction of this committee. If you direct, sorry, let me skip that. Members of the public will have an opportunity to make public comment. You can do so either by here in Carson City, coming up to the desk, or I don't really see anyone in Las Vegas, but our phone lines are also open. So if you'd like to make public comment, you may do so by dialing in right now to 1-669-900-6833. And then they will ask you for the meeting ID, which is 91, and then hit pound. Again, this number is also listed in the agenda. So public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person. You also are always welcome to submit your comments in writing. Those making public comment, please state your name slowly and spell it slowly for the record, and indicate any affiliation that you may have. So with that, I will open it up for public comment. Not seeing anyone approaching here in Las Vegas. Everyone is sitting there thinking we all know each other. We all know what we're here for. No one has anything to say right now. Is there anyone on the phone lines? Give it a minute for broadcasting.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning. Tanya Brown, Advocates for the Inmates and the Innocent. We would like to welcome you all back, and to the new members, welcome. We look forward to meeting with some of you, if not all of you, in the near future, and to discuss some of our concerns and support and possibly oppose some of the legislation that may be coming up. We have put in a proposed amendment to Assembly Bill 49. We are submitting that today. We would like for you to take a look at that. That deals with a factual innocence bill, posthumously bill. And thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Chair, the public line is open and working. However, there are no more callers to participate at this time.
I always like to wait a few moments in case there is anyone dialing in. Broadcasting, does it appear that anyone's attempting to dial in?
Chair, no more callers have called in at this time.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will go ahead and close public comment. Also, just want to remind members that you can always submit questions directly if you have additional follow-up questions directly to the agency. I know that Executive Director Gonzalez will be happy to go through those with you. Just to give you an idea of what's going to be covered this week, we do have a number of presentations. Tomorrow, we will be hearing from the Department of Indigent Defense Services and the Cannabis Compliance Board. On Thursday, we will hear from our DAs, both in Clark and Washoe. and also from our Parole Board and Department of Public Services. On Friday, we will have a presentation from the Gaming Control Board and from Director Zarenda with Department of Corrections. With that, that concludes our meeting for today. We will meet again tomorrow at 8 a.m. I thank all the members for your attention and for our first day going very smoothly, because we're going to be in this room a lot over the next 118 days. So with that, we are adjourned.